I'm Mason, and I work for Root Tulsa. We're
Cool.
launching this series called At a Distance, where we talk to local business owners and community leaders and about how the crisis has affected them and their business.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, could you start by telling me about your background as an educator and how you came to own a sneaker shop?
sure. Yeah. Up until probably about a year ago, a year and a half ago, I was on the path to be working in public education probably for the rest of my life. That was my passion, that was my ambition. I wanted to be a school leader of a school here in Tulsa, and I got on that track, and I think I was in a school building last school year, and midway through that year, after, that was, I guess, my 10th year in public education, I just kind of hit a wall with it. I felt like um, I wasn't going to, I felt like I needed a different kind of vehicle to do some other things that I wanted to do. And I've always been really passionate about sneakers. It sounds so weird to say that, like, I was dedicated to public education for so long and then I just switched it up and moved into sneakers. But in some ways, I think, it makes a lot of sense. I've been able to kind of use that interest as a way to bring community together, which is ultimately what I loved most about public education, was just, the communities and school buildings.
Yeah, could you talk about your project with Disrupt and the kids of Walt Whitman Elementary? Because it seems like even though you're a retail business, you're still giving back to the community and trying to use your background to help people out.
Yeah, I had so much fun with the Disrupt team. Rebecca Campbell McElwain and her whole team, they essentially approached me when we worked through an idea. So they pick a school every year to partner with. They work with a group of kids and they do a mural in North Tulsa. Well, this year, as their project before that mural, we decided, like, we were going to do some merchandise. I'd never had, youth merch. Like, I didn't start my business doing youth merch. And so I thought, what cooler way could there be to introduce Silhouette to that demographic of young kids than to collaborate with, young creators here in the community. And so it just all, like, really lined up. And then, Rebecca and I have a really great working relationship. We both did Teach for America, and so, we knew each other through that network.
Yeah. And can you talk about the importance of Black-owned businesses on Black Wall Street? Because it's such a historic district and it's important that it's getting revitalized, but that needs to be done in a responsible and open way.
Yeah, um, obviously, I want to see, and I know a lot of people do, we want to see more equity in terms of opportunities for people of color to start businesses. And I think, given the very unique history of Black Wall Street and Greenwood here in Tulsa, being a Black business owner here in this community means a lot to me. I think, it's, being in this area, there's a lot of symbolism, and the symbolism matters to the community. And so, my hope is that, and I've heard this, from time to time, my hope is that people will see, kind of the work that I'm doing, and it will give them hope or inspire them to be able to create something like this for themselves. And I just want to say, I'm not the only one doing it. Like, there are a lot of, I think this is like an incredible time in the history of Tulsa where, because of the city's investment in entrepreneurship, and just the amazing amount of talent we have, across all races really in Tulsa, You know, there are just so many opportunities. One of my good friends, Onika Asamo Caesar, you know, she's opening up Fulton Street Coffee and Books, uh, you know, pretty soon. And there are other small businesses that are opening that are being operated by people of color. And so hopefully, you know, this entire community of businesses that are springing up can inspire, you know, future generations.
Right. And how has COVID-19 affected your business? Because as I understand it, you started reselling streetwear and sneakers online, and then you finally got to open a retail shop, and then you had to fall back
Now I'm
on
back
that.
online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think that, um, you know, one thing that makes a successful entrepreneur is that you identify problems and you come up with solutions for those problems. And so even though this is not ideal, and you know, there's a different level of struggle that different, you know, people are business owners are dealing with, I do think that there's some opportunity that, you know, this pandemic has given us. um, One big thing is, you know, to your point, we have uh, pivoted our model to be far more, you know, online focused. We are lucky in that we already had, you know, kind of an infrastructure in place. We already had a website. We weren't updating it like we should have, and we weren't using our social media to really drive traffic to our website until the pandemic hit. And then we realized, like, we have to recommit ourselves to online to e-commerce.
Mhm.
And so it's presented opportunities for us for sure. You know, our revenue is down. You know, we're not selling like we likely would have if people were able to walk into the store. But you know, we're doing the best that we can.
Yeah, and can you talk about that also from the perspective of being having such a new business? I mean, Silhouette started what, about a year ago, and then
Less
this
than a
happened.
year ago,
Less,
November.
yeah. So how is that with?
Yeah, you know, it's frustrating because, you know, it feels like we had a lot of momentum heading into the spring, and then you know, then we hit that wall with the pandemic and everything shutting down. But um, I think it's difficult regardless of the stage that you are in your business, like what's happening. You know, foot traffic is already a struggle for retail in Tulsa, and you know, to create a brick and mortar where you're still having to pay for rent and utilities and those things for a space that you can't really utilize for anything more than storage, you know, because you're selling stuff online during the pandemic. You know, that's difficult. That overhead is really hard to overcome. Um, and, you know, as a new business owner, it's just like another set of problems that I've got to find solutions for that I didn't anticipate. But like I said, you know, if you're not waking up in the morning as an entrepreneur, kind of, you know, ready to try to tackle the challenge, um, then, you know, I don't know. I just think entrepreneur, that's just kind of how we operate. That's kind of the way that we're wired.
Yeah, and what about some of the support you've received through this period? Like, I know you're doing you're collaborating on a video with Typros Foundation right now, right? Can you talk about that project?
Yeah, I have actually spent most of my energy during this pandemic focused on inventory and selling stuff online. Typros approached me because prior to the pandemic, um, had reached out to different organizations. Voter engagement is something that I'm very, like, personally passionate about. And so I want to do what I can, from, you know, the perch of Silhouette, to encourage people who, you know, maybe feel voiceless, to encourage them to get out and register and vote. This is a very important year. And so Typers reached out during this pandemic, and we were like, you know, what can we do? We're really, you know, especially focused on North Tulsa, and trying to get the message out to that community. You know, what can we do to kind of get people engaged with voting? And so I think, you know, it's just an example of what makes Tulsa incredible, is just the collaborative spirit. I mean, for an organization like Type Rose to reach out to a sneaker store, in Tulsa, like that's how many communities is something like that happening in? And kind of to your question from earlier, how are we doing with all this? We would be struggling a lot more if it wasn't for all the community support that we've received. So for sure, like, all the reasons that I thought this business could work, those reasons are proving themselves to be true during this challenging time.
That's great. And something that people unfortunately can't experience right now is Silhouette's also an art gallery. So how in the past have you engaged with artists, and why did that matter to you to show local art or art from around the country? I know you had a artist from, were they from Fort Worth or
So we had an artist
Houston?
who had stuff from San Antonio.
San Antonio, okay.
Uh-huh. And we're rethinking our model, trying to figure out what this is going to look like, especially with, um, who knows when the next First Friday is going to be. Things are up in the air. And I think, another great opportunity that the pandemic has given is the ability for me to sit down and really reflect on wins and losses from the start of the business to now.
Mm.
And I think, we're going to shift a little bit with art. I think the focus is definitely going to be, a lot more local. And I think that we're going to focus on having more kind of permanent pieces that don't rotate out as regularly. So before we were doing, kind of monthly new artists showing in our gallery space. But I think it just ultimately became a lot to manage. And though I want to give artists a platform, I think, they can take, I can, with the shift to having more permanent pieces, I think that more artists will be able to have even greater exposure because their pieces will be in here for longer. And so I'm excited about the opportunities. And for sure, if there are local artists who, have art that reflects Black culture, reflects street culture, sneaker culture, please reach out to me. You can find me on Silhouette Tulsa on Instagram and Facebook. And let me back up a little bit.
Hmm.
The reason that I decided to go the art gallery direction in the first place is because, when I was researching what is it that is going to make uh, brick and mortar retail sustainable, it was that it had to be an experience. You need to go into a place that doesn't feel just like you're, shopping online at Amazon. It needs to feel like a place that's very special and memorable. And when people walk into Silhouette, I want them to experience sneaker culture, street culture, and a lot of that is reflected in art.
And let's talk a little bit about the sneakers themselves. So how have you watched a community come together over the shoes? Because I'm sure it's a different experience just following a business model where you sell online and you're accepting funds and sending emails, but having a place where people can come together around something like this and try to answer for those people who may not understand sneaker culture or why it's important.
Um, I think it's just, people get into sneakers for a variety of reasons. There are some who are, and for reasons that I think resonate with everyone, right? Like sometimes you're into sneakers because of the nostalgia, Jordan Brand Retro's a sneaker that came out back when you were in junior high. Now you're in your mid 30s and you're like, wow, I can't, it's crazy. I used to own this sneaker. And it's special and it, brings back memories and, people want that. Some people, are into sneakers because they're collectors, because just like, a bottle of wine, the value of sneakers changes, the quality of sneakers varies, and people love collecting things. The Philbrook is doing their treasures collection where they've got a bunch of like local people with their personal collections in the museum, and that's just indicative. And I've got my sneaker collection in there, and it's just, again, we like to collect. That's just how we are as human beings. And so there are a lot of different reasons. And then for some people, it's just like it's a status thing. Like sneakers are cool, you know. Travis Scott is wearing the newest sneakers. You see basketball players in the NBA wearing amazing sneakers, walking through the tunnel. And as a kid or even as an adult, like sometimes you want to flex, sometimes you want to have, you know, some really dope sneakers on your foot, just like you might want a nice piece of jewelry on your neck or on your arm. And so it's just more of the same. It's just a different genre, basically.
It's like a way of expressing your personality, I guess,
And
right?
that's another thing. I can't believe I left that out. And that's the reason I got into sneakers was self-expression. You know, I was in middle school when I got my first pair of really dope sneakers, and I remember feeling like I was a complete nerd, which I definitely was objectively. But then having a fresh pair of sneakers and getting, you know, suddenly attention from people who I felt like wouldn't pay me attention otherwise. And so, you know, status, self-expression, you know, it's sneakers is all of it.
And I selfishly have to ask, do you have any of the Nike Off-White Blazers
You
in
know,
stock?
I sold a pair of those recently, but I
Yeah.
don't have any more of them in stock. But if you want some, let me know and I can try to find some for you.
Okay. Yeah, when those came out, I was watching online, but they just go way too quick, you know?
Are you into sneakers?
Uh, a little bit. I'm into a little bit of like the high fashion streetwear stuff, but mainly
Okay.
just admiring it. Like I don't really have the money to to truly
Yeah.
be into that, you know.
Word. Yeah. When I
Yeah.
was a kid, I mean, you know, I had to depend on my parents to get me a pair, but then as I started to make money, you know, I could start investing into sneakers. But yeah, no, I respect though that you knew about the off-white blazers. Those are great.
Another one I couldn't get that I liked is the Cactus Plant flea market
Oh
blazers that
yeah.
came out. Those were cool.
Yeah, I got a pair of those. We have a pair in store actually.
Yeah.
I love that whole collection. In fact, I have that's a part of the collection of mine that's at the Philbrook. The Blazers, the Vapor Max, and the Air Force Ones. To me, they were the collaborators of the year last year.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't get to see that Philbrook show. Do you know if they're going to extend that
They
because of
are,
this?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're going to extend through August.
Okay, that's great.
Hmm.
And so, where do you see your business heading into the future when you guys reopen and are able to have people back? Do you have any cool stuff planned for people to check out? Or
Yeah, so we actually are launching a vintage section. I've brought in this guy named Ryan Cass, who's a local photographer, but also a curator of vintage, and he is going to be curating our collection. We actually, even though we're not technically open right now, had somebody walk in earlier and, you know, bought a vintage tee. It was a beautiful blue tee from 1989, Tulsa. Like it was crazy. And so I'm excited about that. I think it fits right in line with what we're trying to do. Of course, the nostalgia, but then also people come in here because they want pieces that separate them from others, right? They want something really special. And when you find a shirt from 1989, you know that your friends are not going to be rocking that shirt. You're the only one who has that shirt. So very excited about that for sure.
that's great. I'm looking forward to that. And my last question is this: I've been asking everybody who takes part in this, when the social distancing goes away and you're able to go out back in the streets, what's one thing you want to do? It could be a bar or a restaurant. What do you miss most about Tulsa?
What do I miss most? Um, yeah, I guess, you know, for me, that's a really good question. You know what I really miss? I miss the public library. Like I know that's like the nerdiest thing I could possibly say, but I used to go to the downtown public library probably like once a week for a variety of things. I just love working there too. So I think, you know, once that reopens, I don't know if it has, that's going to be the first place that I go.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for talking to me, and I wish you and your business the best of luck. I know you guys are going to make it through this. So,
Thank you so much, Mason. You're awesome. Let me know if you ever need anything, and I'll keep my eye out for those off-white blazers.
thank
All
you. Have a good day.
right. You too.
Bye.
Bye.